Welcome, everybody. It's 11 o'clock. We had an appointment at 11 o'clock and we're going to get started. So Marrisa, we're very excited for you to take the reins of this and educate us and bring back to all of us what you've learned from the nationwide committee on this from KW. And I know there's a lot to talk about. I mean, when you look at the workshop, for those of you who, I don't know if you opened the link and looked at the actual workbook, but this could be a like 2.5 to 3 hour long thing. That's not going to be today. So Marrisa is ready to give us the abbreviated version, everything that we need to know. And I'm just going to let her go from there. So thank you, Marrisa, for doing this.
Cool. Thanks, Steve. So we're definitely going, they sincerely suggested doing 3 separate workshops to cover each of these sections. So we're definitely going to experience a condensed version today. To keep in mind, we're going to do a little bit of education up front. We're going to hear a message from Julia Lachey. She's the leader of equity and inclusion at Keller Williams. And then we're going to basically give some context around the conversation that we're going to have. We'll jump into the conversation, basically soundboarding each other. What did we hear? What are our ahas? What are our experiences? And then the third part is, what are we going to do going forward? What are some things that we're going to change in our business? What are some things that we're going to be doing differently as we interact with clients? And I'm really excited to lead that conversation. Just to repeat, I am not a teacher. I am not here to teach anything. I come here with a humble heart, simply to facilitate a conversation today. All right. So get ready to hit the unmute and jump in. I'm going to start by just setting like some ground rules. Okay. We got 6, 7 here that I think we can all agree on. And if there's some more that you think we should add to the list, please feel free to speak up. All right. So as we jump into the conversation portion, let's remember that one person speaks at a time. As heated as you may be, please raise your hand and I'll call on you. You can either raise your physical hand, you can raise your little emoji hand, and we'll give you an opportunity to speak and respond. All right, be aware, of course, of how long you're speaking. This is an abbreviated course. We only have an hour today to be together. Let's be sure to ask questions and be curious. Gee, Steve, that was really something like interesting that you said. I've never heard that before. Can you actually like elaborate a little bit on that? That hasn't been, my understanding, right? We're not going to accuse each other. We're not going to be pointing fingers. We're here to learn from each other. Let's be sure to fight defensiveness and remain open when we get challenged. Steve, what you said to me earlier, that was actually like really rubbed me the wrong way. When you said that, that actually kind of hurt me. And to my experience, that's been a really negative thing, what you said. So, going forward, I hope that maybe you can change differently that way. Does that offend you, Steve, if I ask you to change a little bit? Cool. Let's accept responsibility for the impact of our words. I like to use yesterday as a perfect example, right? I said something in the morning call that to me was literally nothing. It literally meant nothing to me. And yet I was reached out to afterwards with somebody for a correction. And they said, Marrisa, we know where your heart is. You obviously didn't mean any ill will by what you said, but allow me to educate you a little bit more. And I said, gosh, you know what? You're absolutely right. I accept responsibility for that. And I'm going to do differently and better going forward. So please allow that to be an example for how we can all interact. Let's see. Very important. Accept that no one can be articulate all of the time. Okay, we're all gonna make a gaffe eventually. It's inevitable. And as much as we may try to walk gently around things, I'm sure someone's gonna say something at some point that might, burn that little fire inside you. Let's have the forgiveness and come with an open heart to educate each other. All right. And of course, assume the best of all participants. Does that make sense? Does that sound fair to everybody? Fabulous. Is there anything we should add to this list that we haven't gone over for ground rules? All right, let me change my view real quick so I can see all of you better. Fabulous. All right. Do I have screen sharing capabilities? Yes, maybe. Let's
Yes, you
try.
do. You're good.
So let's start with a message from Julia Lachey, and we'll do some ahas afterwards.
Hey everyone, I'm glad you joined me to talk about social equity. So what is social equity? Well, let me give you a quick story to give you an example. In 2018, my client, Florence Williams, purchased her first house. She was a first-time homebuyer. In fact, she was a first-generational homebuyer. She lived with her grandparents, and her family had no history of home ownership. Not because they never wanted to, but because years of government practices prohibited them from pursuing home ownership. Let me explain. I'll give you a quick history lesson. In the wake of the Great Depression, as part of the New Deal policy, the federal government began underwriting and backing home mortgage loans. In 1938, the Federal Housing Administration created an underwriting manual that had guidelines on how these loans would be distributed and who could get them. Ultimately, this institutionalized racism and segregation in the housing industry. The FHA used redlining and deed restrictions to prevent African Americans and other minorities from pursuing homeownership and building wealth. They would use color-coded maps and literally draw a red line around the areas in the neighborhoods that were less desirable or that they weren't going to be lending in. The other neighborhoods were outlined in green. Because of these policies, if you lived in the green neighborhoods, it was super easy to get a loan. But if you lived in the red neighborhoods, no loans were available. The result was that from 1934 to 1968, 98% of home loans went exclusively to white families. And this advantage compounded over time. For families in the green neighborhood, the influx of new wealth and brought new businesses, new retail, and the property values increased. And because the property values increased, homeowners were now able to use their equity to do things like send their kids to college or buy more property and build more wealth, passing this wealth and these advantages down to the next generation. Well, the families in the red neighborhoods had far less opportunities to do that and far less ability to build wealth. Therefore, many remained trapped in poverty. Only a little over 50 years ago, the Federal Fair Housing Act of 1968 made these laws and practices illegal. My client, Florence Williams, was able to purchase her home using down payment assistance, which helped her pay her down payment and her closing costs. So you see, that's just what equity is: fairness within processes and systems, and the removal of barriers to participation. Equity recognizes each individual situation and circumstances different, and it allocates the resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. Through my involvement in neighborhood organizations and with community lenders, I was able to help Florence get over $40,000 in down payment assistance. This allowed her to become a first-time home buyer and better, a first-generation homeowner. Hi, everyone. I'm Julia Lachey Israel. I'm the managing partner of the Signature Group in Minneapolis and Dallas, Texas. I'm also a social equity task force regional leader for the North Central, New Mexico, and Memphis region. As the past president of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers and a member of a number of different diversity community engagement organizations and committees, I've been able to help agents build social equity in their communities and also build a strong business by implementing diversity and equitable practices directly into your business model. I'd love to share some of those ideas with you today. The first thing I would say that you could do to build social equity in your business and do good in your community is first simply embrace diversity. Embracing diversity is the best thing you can do for your business. Diversity is beautiful. The stats show that the United States and the housing industry are becoming more and more diverse, and that's awesome. In fact, that's great for your business. That provides agents with an opportunity to get more clientele and to grow and expand your business in many different areas. But to take advantage of this, you first have to be willing to accept people's differences and understand cultural differences, and be willing to incorporate those differences into your business. Differences can be incredibly valuable, especially in your team. Having a variety of people who think differently than you do, are from different backgrounds than you are, have different experiences and skills, are great to help you build your team and be able to understand the broader audience. And maybe you don't have a team per se, but your team could be your lender, the home inspectors that you refer, and a number of different people that come together to provide the services to your clients. Having a variety of people in your business is not only good for your individual business, but it's good for people to see that you embrace diversity and you accept it. It can be good to have people who think different than you. They have different perspectives and bring fresh ideas. For a team to thrive, you need people who think differently than you do and who can offer you suggestions and advice to reach a broader audience. So how do you do that? Things that you can do to embrace diversity are just to seek out different people, seek people from different perspectives that look differently than you do. For example, embracing diversity kind of looks like, well, think of it this way. I've never been to India. I've never been to Guyana. I've never been to Mexico. But I have friends who are from all of these places, all over the country and all over the world. And because of them, I learned things about their culture and their belief systems and how they do business. And increasing your knowledge in different cultures and backgrounds helps you to appeal to a much wider client base. Plus, diversity is just good for business. When people see that you're diverse and inclusive, it's looked at very positively and it boosts your reputation. It encourages clients to kind of want to work with you and choose to work with you. Choosing to embrace diversity is better for everyone, and it makes your business stronger and it helps you to better understand your clients. The second thing that I would offer you to do is to implement a diverse business modeling strategy. So in essence, just incorporating social equity directly in your business plan. Here's how you can do that. One, diversify your team. Like I just mentioned, having people from different cultures in your different lenders, having people from home inspectors that may reach a broader audience. All of these are great ways to diversify your team. Or maybe you do actually have a team and you are a rainmaker. Having agents on your team that can service their particular market is a great idea. The best way to relate to a diverse audience is to have a diverse team. You can also build a plan, a diversity plan, by just making sure that you have consistent policies and procedures. What do I mean by that? Well, equity is about fairness. So making sure that you have a consistent policy and procedure in your business allows you to make sure that you're treating every customer and client the same. Don't allow your unconscious biases or your implicit biases to interfere in your business. Mm-hmm. Oh yes, we all have them. We all have preconceived notions of people or prejudgments of people based on things we've heard, things we've seen, experiences we've had, even experiences we haven't had. And the only way to make sure that your prejudgment of people or your unconscious bias doesn't interfere in your pocketbook is to make sure that you are consistently implementing the same policies and practices with everyone you encounter. It will also help you make sure you keep your license. Now, I know many of you have seen a video that was done on social equity. They went under, Newsday did a video investigation where they went undercover to see if different agents were treating people differently based on their color. The results were unfortunate. Unfortunately, a lot of agents were caught actually discriminating against people based on how they looked. Now, this could have been avoided. An easy way to avoid it would be if they all had consistent practices and policies, so that when someone came to them asking for a service, they weren't treating them differently because they treat everyone the same. So again, it's incredibly important, not just for the good of your business, but also to keep your license, to make sure that you have consistent policies and practices. Another way to implement social equity directly into your business plan is through our advertising and our marketing. Now, in our business as real estate professionals, advertising and marketing are critical elements to how we do business. Making sure that you have an advertising and marketing plan that is inclusive is going to be incredibly effective. Ask yourself, am I doing anything that would violate fair housing laws or worse, reduce my reach? Remember, the goal of advertising and marketing is to gain exposure and to maximize our profits and to maximize the positive outcomes that we have. So when marketing, make sure your marketing is reaching a broader population and you're not just keeping it in a tight knit. So make sure that it's available to a lot of people through a number of mediums. Maybe you use radio or newspapers, or maybe you use social media. Are you using ads that are too confining? Or are you actually broadening your audience to make sure that more people are able to see what you have to offer? The basic rule of marketing and advertising is to be inclusive, right? And that goes for your business when you're marketing yourself, or even when you're marketing your listing. The key to success is inclusion, not exclusion. The third thing that I would suggest to build social equity in your business and to do good in your community is to simply get involved in your community. Getting involved in your community can look like a lot of different things. You could get involved in your church or your neighborhood organization or maybe a nonprofit in your area. But getting involved in the community is good for the community, it's good for social equity, and quite frankly, it's good for social capital. Now, while of course you go out into the community to do good, people see you out there and it makes you a leader. It makes you a community service real estate agent that they recognize. What do we always say in real estate? People do business with people they know, like, and trust. Well, how do they know you? They know you because you're around. They've seen you around. They like you because you're around and you've been doing good in the community and they trust you for that very same reason. So getting out in the community doesn't just do good for the community, it does good for your business. You could get out there and maybe teach others how to build their own equity through home ownership, maybe by speaking at home buyer workshops. You know, for over a decade, I spoke at first-time home buyer workshops in my community. There is nothing more rewarding than teaching people to get the information that they need to build wealth for their own families through homeownership. Because we're able to do that, people see you up there, and of course they're going to call you because you're there to help them buy their house. Now, again, we're not there to get business, but it is kind of lead generating, and we are doing good, and we are all about win-win, right? So while you're out there in the community doing good, you're also doing good things for your business. Maybe you could even teach Quantum Leap, or better yet, Quantum Leap for young adults. You can help other people learn how to get their unfair share, regardless of which industry they work in or that they're going to be going into. And best of all, you don't have to go at this alone. There's lots of different organizations in your community that you could potentially partner with. For example, in my area, I was the past president of the Twin Cities National Association of Real Estate Brokers. That's NAREB. NAREB is the oldest Black trade association in the company. The point of NAREB is to promote democracy in housing. We partnered with all kinds of other neighborhood organizations, community organizations, nonprofits, and we provided all kinds of events and trainings and different things that were beneficial to the community. Likewise, there's other organizations just like NAREB, for example, ARIA, the Asian Real Estate Association of America. And their goal is to promote sustainable homeownership in the Asian community. There's NARIP, the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, and they're champions of homeownership for Hispanic people. There's also the LGBTQ plus Real Estate Alliance, and they empower LGBTQ communities on their path to homeownership. There's all kinds of different organizations that you could partner with to do good in the community. You could even join some of these organizations. And you don't have to be a member of the protected class to be in that group. For example, I can belong to ARIA, even though I'm not Asian. Anyone can belong. Everybody's welcome. Belonging to these organizations will, one, not only help you better understand how to work with all different types of clientele, but also give you a lot of opportunities to participate in events that they may be doing in your area. Another thing that you can do, and this kind of leads me to our fourth thing to do to implement social equity into your business and to do good, is to join your local association board or committee. So of course, we belong to the National Association of Realtors. Likewise, there's a state association and your local association. Getting involved in the committees and the boards of your association can be a very impactful thing. You have a unique opportunity to bring awareness to a lot of issues that may be important to you and may be important to you in your community. And it's a good thing for you to do. Participating in these types of committees and boards gives you a very valuable voice to address these important issues. Oftentimes associations, especially government affairs committees, play a major role in real estate policy taking place in your area. Your involvement will allow you to be a voice and to vote and support local practices, local policies, equitable policies, and community development projects that may be good for your community. I'm a member of the National Association of Realtors Housing Opportunity Committee. Probably one of my favorite committees that I've been on. I had an opportunity to participate in the Grant Review Committee. And what they do is provide each local association with programs and funding and resources for the association to go out and provide housing opportunities to the community. And again, many of them partnered with organizations like ARIA and NAREP and NARAB to do that kind of work. It's a great opportunity for you to get involved in doing that at your local association. And by the way, if you already are involved in a local association, don't forget to join the KW Industry Leaders. There's a group out there just for you. The KW Industry Leaders supports compliance and policy initiatives, and it allows us to promote KW's position as industry thought leaders. We have meetings at different events that happen throughout the year. So if you already are participating in your local committee or a national or a state committee or board, make sure you look for the KW Industry Leaders group. That leads me, of course, to RPAC. Don't forget about RPAC. The Realtor Political Action Committee operates off of voluntary contributions from realtors to help elect candidates who understand and support our interests. RPAC and other political funding types of things are keys to promoting and protecting the real estate industry. There's a saying out there, if real estate is your career, politics is your business. So I highly encourage you to get involved in all of those types of things. One, like I said, simply embrace diversity. It's good for business. Two, make sure that your advertising and marketing is inclusive and is reaching a broader audience. Three, getting involved in your community. Not only does it build social equity, it builds social capital. And lastly, making sure that you are participating in your local, state, and national boards and committees. You see, as a real estate professional, ensuring equal housing is not just profitable for your business, it's actually our civic duty. Whether you're involved in your community teaching homebuyer classes or you're at a boardroom table supporting equitable community development projects, I hope you are tremendously successful from your participation. In fact, I hope your business is wildly successful. So go out there and do well. But above all, go out there and do good.
Thank you, Julia. Excellent. Stop share. Cool. So a lot of information. Let's shake it off real quick. Shake off the video sleepiness. All right. We're gonna get it engaged in the conversation now. All right. There's a lot of information in there, I hope you guys took some notes. I definitely have some things to share, but before I get into that, I'm curious, what are you guys, some of your ahas? What are some things that you heard that stuck out to you?
I'll mention, Marrisa, that call me naive, I didn't know that redlining is actually redlining, like putting a red border around neighborhoods.
Isn't
right?
that shocking? Like there's no like synonym. It's literally they drew lines around and said, no, Black people cannot buy homes here. We will not lend to them. Craziness.
And then also me just realizing that, fair housing guidelines and policies and things were put into place in my lifetime. That looks like horrifying to me. Like I expected that to happen a long time ago, but no, it's within my lifetime. Thank God they're here, but yet, good grief.
They're contemporary problems that we're dealing with. This isn't the past, this is contemporary. Heather, what'd you hear?
Just to piggyback on what Steve was saying, to figure, I did the quick math quickly, that was 34 years of that before anything was put in place to stop that. 34 years, it just blows my mind. I'm horrified. I thought it was a term like redlining. I had no idea it was a real thing.
It's very fascinating. Anybody else hear something worth sharing? There's plenty worth sharing.
So when you do your update for fair housing for your continuing ed, the program that they put in place really highlights some of these historic details that you're talking about. I'm 64, so clearly it was within my lifetime. But here's the interesting thing: in the Connecticut update, they actually give you instances that are right here in the state of Connecticut, right in our own backyard.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, because the national conversation, of course, is worth having, but to understand locally exactly what's happening with our demographics and our neighbors, I think is even more important. Dan?
Yeah, one of the, we talk about wealth building a lot here at KW, right? And I think one of the interesting impacts that isn't really talked about, or at least I haven't really heard it talk about a lot, is like, what are the generational impacts on the wealth of entire, groups of people that have had kind of these unfair practices, or have had to deal with these unfair practices as well. I think it's,
That's a great point, and we're actually going
it's
to
a whole other, it brings us to a whole new scale, right?
totally. We're going to put a little perspective on that afterwards, after these ahas. Some graphs in our workbook that just like literally made my jaw drop. What about removing barriers of entry, right? Obviously, they got rid of redlining. That's one thing. What are some other things standing in the way right now? Why isn't everybody a homeowner? Why do some people feel like they can buy homes and others can't? Right? What are we doing to not only create more business, but bring more people to the table? I think these are like conversations we should be having with ourselves, with our colleagues, or even in our home. Why are we leaving money on the table? Right? Why aren't we inviting people to participate in this great thing we call real estate? We think it's so great, right? We think owning homes is the shit, right? So why aren't we having these larger conversations with people? Yes.
It's interesting what Dan just said, and that is an important point that I know we're going to talk about the generational wealth. But the side to that is also within certain communities, the generational thought pattern of we don't own homes, we'll find a rental. It's just not even part of a pattern. Like if you see other people in your family buying homes and that sort of thing, you think, well, that's my natural way. But if you don't see it in your community, you don't think it's part of your long-term.
If you don't see the role model, you don't understand that it's possible for you as well. I think the obvious example, right, is when Barack Obama was elected president. The number one thing I heard when that happened was people said, oh, wow, maybe my kids can see themselves like as being the president in the future. I even heard stories of like Black families, the kids saying, oh, I want to be president when I grow up. And the parents would say, well, maybe you should come up with a plan B. How horrible. And these are the conversations we should be having with each other. One last thing, and then let's jump into the next thing. How are we developing social equity into our business plans, right? What does that look like? Does that mean having a diverse group and cast of characters as our allied resources, right? What kind of lenders are we working with? What programs do they offer? What about our home inspectors? When you have somebody whose first language or their second language is English, can you imagine reading a home inspection report? That it doesn't even make sense in English. Forget about another language, right? So if you're at the home inspection and you have somebody who speaks the native language of your buyer, how big an impact can that make? Yes, Bogdan?
No, I was just applauding your comment.
Oh, you're clapping. Thank you. I like that. All right. So let's go into our workbooks real quick. You'll see the first few pages, there is a glossary there for you. So if a word comes up or a topic comes up in conversation, maybe you need a little education about, go ahead and refer to that. I'm not going to waste our time sitting here holding hands reading it. All right, but what I really want to get into are the graphs. And for you guys, that starts on page 12. Let's take a moment and give you just literally a minute to look over those. There's 3 graphs there for you to digest. 3, 4, 5. There's 5 graphs for you to digest. The first one is just groups of home buyers overall. And then the next 4 break it down by different ethnicities. And again, I have plenty to say, so I'm going to force you guys to speak up here. Be prepared. Be prepared to share. All right, let's just start with the first one, right? Population distribution by race or ethnicity. What do we see here? It goes from 1990 to 2040. It's projected a little bit into the future. What's a pretty obvious data point that we can draw from this graph?
It's very white.
It's very white, that's for sure.
It
Hispanic
changes
is-
over time. The race changes over time.
Yeah, the ratios seem to be changing, right? Us white people, we're shrinking. A whole mess of ethnicities, they're growing, right?
opportunity within the Hispanic community, but doesn't look as much like the Black community is growing into 2040.
Interesting, right?
Yep.
I think that's maybe something we've heard in the news a little bit. This is a projection, of course, right? The 2030, 2040 stats, but it's definitely something we've heard some buzz about. One thing that I noticed in the 2040 projection, if you can draw a line from 1990, we have whites at about just under 80%, right? Scooch on over to 2040, it's ever so slightly over 50%. This is 50% of the population we're talking about. 50% of the population who we can demonstrate is not involved in the real estate world, not involved in home ownership, not involved in real estate sales. 50% of the population could be left out of the conversation. Let's move forward. Figure 4.12a or 12a, okay, we'll call it 12a. Total homeowners by race or ethnicity, white households. Again, 1990 to 2040. What do we see? What's a pretty obvious data point there as it trends into the future? Let's go, guys.
Not much of a change in renters or to buyers. There's not much of a change.
Not much of a change, really stable, right? Seems like there might be a system in place, perhaps, that helps people buy homes and become homeowners, right? Build wealth through home ownership. What about 12B? Total homeowners, Black households versus renters.
Owning and renting both seem to increase, but renting disproportionately more.
Renting disproportionately increases for Black households. That's, I mean, just looking from 2010 to 2020, it's happened. That's actual statistics, right? That's not a projection. Between 2010 and 2020, Black homeownership hardly rose from 6.1 to 6.4, and rentals rose from 7.7 to 8.9. And that's right there telling you these people are not buying homes. Why are these people not buying homes is the question. And then of course it just exacerbates as it goes forward. What about 12C, Hispanic households? This one I thought was really interesting. Should I call on someone by random? Maybe keep you guys on your toes?
Increase in ownership, right?
Increase in ownership, yeah. Not only is home ownership increasing, very easy graph to read, guys. Come
And
on, not a
rentals,
numbers
yeah.
person. I think it's
And
The renters are increasing as well.
but the general population
The general population,
is,
exactly. Yeah.
is increasing a lot. And then
Right.
on top of it, the rental and homeowner are pretty close to each other. And it's actually expected that there'll be more Hispanic homeowners than renters. So how is it that we have more Hispanic homeowners than renters, yet we have more Black renters than homeowners? How is that, right? There's no answer to that, right? That's obviously a conversation we're about to have. And of course, the last one, even more interesting, Asian households, 12D. Shocking how the statistic came to be. Can everybody give me an aha from 12D? Yes, Lou? Oh. just
Oh,
hanging out
aha,
on
not
mute.
an aha, I mean,
Well, let's look, guys. It's pretty straightforward, right? Somehow the Asian community, for quite some time in history now, has been majority homeowners. And frankly, I have no idea. You know, my education in the past has really lumped Asians into the minority category, that they've been discriminated against, that we've actually banned, you know, immigration of immigrant communities, that we've exiled Asian communities, that we've literally forced them to sell their homes and goods and put them in internment camps, right? These things have happened to Asian communities in the United States, and yet somehow, of all the other communities that we've mentioned, they're the majority homeowners.
I'm
Within
gonna,
their own group.
they're highly educated. Highly educated.
That's our assumption, correct?
Well,
I
in
don't
my
have the
past
stats,
as
so
a-
it is-
as- I'm gonna say that as my past as a college professor,
Yeah,
to say that, and my seeing, having some information about statistics in college admissions.
yes, it's true. So I think we've seen those stats. I think we've seen those stats. All right, so
Marissa,
what are we gonna do about it? Yes, Steve?
I think it's based on what Dee said too. I think it's not just about, formal education, but the concept of building wealth within that community, right? It's like we were talking about before, generationally, you're not seeing it, so you're not experiencing it, so it's not an option for you, right?
Yeah.
It's very disparate amongst those different communities.
And also in certain communities, Asian communities being one of them, there is the option of business building. They'll eat, whether it's a mom and pop grocery store on the corner. So it isn't always a path through college for the first or second generation.
Right.
Oftentimes that's the third generation.
Right.
Yeah, conserving resources and wealth within the community is a big thing for many communities.
You know, if I'm bold enough to say, and please speak up if I say anything untoward, I would say the stereotype or maybe the story that we hear around these communities is exactly what Donna said, right? Asian communities hardworking, building businesses, right? Even the kids are working in the business. That's kind of the what we hear around that. Around Hispanic communities, I often hear is very stick together, right? We came to this country for a reason, right? We're building ourselves an opportunity is often the story that I hear. And what story do I hear within Black communities? I think it's very recently that we start hearing, Black Lives Matter, right? Empowering our own community, building each other up. I feel like that conversation is newer to the community. Well, even just maybe like on a like the whole social scale, within our country. Like I haven't heard these things in my youth. So I can't speak to exactly what, people are saying within themselves. Obviously, I'm not Black, right? I don't have a Black family. I'm not part of these conversations, but I'm not overhearing them. Maybe somebody else can correct me, but I think that's kind of interesting.
It's now become more mainstream.
More mainstream. Thank you, Steve. Mainstream is the word I'm looking for. All right. So let's have a conversation as a whole, right? What are we going to do about it? We have context around this a little bit. I think we understand where we are and where we're going. So what are we going to do about it? Let's leverage these opportunities into growth. So question 1. And again, you have to participate, guys. Don't make me tap dance up here. All right. Question 1. Considering the population and home ownership trends and forecasts of the United States, what opportunities does this provide for you and your business? So seeing the growth and the projections that we just saw and discussed, what opportunities does that have for you guys as a business owner in real estate? So there may be new demographics we could be exploring. I'm curious, is anybody doing workshops for first-time homeowners? Is anybody doing them in any of these assisted rental buildings? Educating people on CAFA and FHA programs?
So how about, can you hear me? Oh, this
Yes,
is Lou.
yes, go ahead, Lou.
Yeah, how about get, certain demographics into like the Stanford Government Center and have like these, gatherings, workshops, and you invite lenders, agents, and, explore what's holding up these certain demographics.
Totally.
And, have these kind of workshops or these, information, so tell me, what's, you out there, what's holding you up, or what are you looking to do? And, also have a lender participants in that too. And so, kind of see what we can do to accelerate the process begins with the pre-approval and then works up to us.
I think workshop is the right word for that.
Where's
Because
where's the roadblocks? Yeah.
Because if we come with, you can always come with a presentation, right? And you can talk your head off at people all day. But to have a workshop to hear, where are you? What are your concerns right now? And be able to offer solutions might be more beneficial. Go ahead, Angela.
One of the things that I did for my clients, like most of my clients are either Hispanics or Brazilians. So I translated everything, all the flyers or the buyer consult, seller consult. So I have the 3 languages. So it took me forever, but now like I'm meeting a Brazilian client this afternoon, so I have it ready. So anytime when I have, of course, the document for them to sign has to be in English. So I have a Brazilian and a Hispanic speaking attorney. And so I try to really just get my people to understand definitely what they need to do. So I think that is a good thing to do.
I think that's great. That's great. And the fact that KW Command does not have a Spanish language buyer consult pre-ready for people is a huge, huge opportunity for the company to correct. Go ahead, Marcel.
Okay, what I'm facing with my community is, I don't know if it is just my community, but it's more deeper than that. First of all, what Angela said is very true. They don't understand what they are doing. I met some people who owned before and lost their property because they didn't understand the mortgage.
Wow.
And finding people who speak their language is very important. And I don't have that. The other thing also is their power of buying is very, very low compared to the Spanish population or Asian population. That explains your graph. It is just because they have lack of information. They are just busy working, making money that is not even enough to help them have a good life. And they don't have time to come to the training or go somewhere, get the information. It is more deeper than what we're saying here. That's true that there are redlining and all other things. But I think also they have to understand what they are doing, why they are doing, or what are the tools that they have that can help them become a homeowner. Basically, that's this. I'm trying to work with them, get them understand that they can be homeowner, even though that they don't have a big power to buy. And in that case scenario, we need down payment assistance. We need a mortgage person who is going to explain them what they are signing exactly, or an attorney who's going to speak to them so they can understand what they are doing. I'm trying to put all those things together to help them. Is working a little, is not working well, but I'm getting there.
So Marcel, I really appreciate you sharing that. Can you remind me, I apologize, what's your native language? Your first
French.
language? French.
French. Mhm.
And that's when you say like they don't understand the language, that's the majority of your clients that you're referring to, they speak French?
Yes, I did a transaction. I was basically the one doing everything for the client, like
Wow.
reading all the lender was CCing me on in every single email. I was having Zoom with my, it was during COVID, Zoom with my client, signing paper, explaining explaining what every single thing of the mortgage. I tried to find a mortgage person who speak French. I didn't find it. I still didn't have it.
Wow.
That it is a little challenging. When I joined real estate, my goal was to help every single person in my community buy a house. But I was quickly, I have to forget that dream. But I mean, I have to find another way to get business because they weren't ready. Even if they are making the money, they didn't understand what is a credit score.
Yeah.
You know, they write off their taxes when they are self-employed, and the tax income doesn't show it, the tax return doesn't show enough income. You see, when most of them bought in 2005, 2006, and now they all going foreclosure because they bought. It was easy to buy at that time. They didn't even understand what they are signing.
Wow.
And now they are losing their house. They have to go out and rent, and renting is very, very expensive right now, as you can see.
Worse than buying right now.
Exactly.
I'm gonna circle back around to that. I put a note down. Thank you for sharing that, Marcel. Carlos, I think was next.
Hey, so I just wanted to say thanks to everybody, Marrisa and the whole, everybody putting this together. I just wanted to say something that I heard recently, like 3 months ago, and I've kind of been living by that. And it's the phrase, the cavalry is not coming, we're all we have. And I think that, you know, someone asked what the roadblock is. The roadblock is us. Nobody's going to come. Nobody's going to come here and save the day. This is our community. And I guess, thank God, I've seen both sides of the spectrum. I grew up in a place where, you know, where we didn't own a home. We rented, and then things got ugly for us. And then now I look at a different side of it, right? I was telling somebody recently that when I was doing mortgages in college, somebody told me, you know, you don't belong in this area, you know? And so I've seen both sides of the spectrum. That was in New York. I've seen both sides of the spectrum. And the only thing that we have is us. And if we don't do it, if we don't take action and say, how can I personally, locally make a difference, it's not going to get done. You know, the next person, because that's a big part of just kind of why we have so many issues. We leave it on to the next person, the next person, the next person. Thank God that we are a organization that really takes this into account, and I think we're going to make big differences. And we're not waiting on someone in Washington or someone in Austin, Texas to make a difference. We're waiting on someone here in Stanford, in Ridgefield, in Westport, in Norwalk, in the area, in the community you live. That's where you can make a difference. Because, and the last thing I'll say is, when I was doing mortgages, I did 2 seminars every single month. One in English, one in Spanish, one in the church, one in the library, in a community center, whatever it was. And that's the only way that I built my business. I never made a cold call. I never knocked on doors. I just did seminars, one in English and one in Spanish, because I think, like Marcel said, I can only speak about the Hispanic community. The Hispanic community, when I was working with them, they were kind of lost and they were being taken advantage of a lot, right? And so that's all I had to say. Thank you, guys.
And I appreciate that, Carlos. You're exactly right. You know, we are the hero, we're the solution we're waiting for. And what I heard too, and what you said, is that you went to where people were. You got to their level, right? We didn't bring them to the table. We brought the table to them, right? Some people don't even understand there is a table. A lot of people don't even understand there's a table to be at.
We are the table.
We are the table. Yes, Donna.
So this segues perfectly into what I wanted to say. Both Marcel, I think it was Angela and Carlos, talked about going into the community, not having them come to us, going into the community, getting involved with the community. If it is your community, then that's fantastic. Houses of worship, local community events, bring the message there. If it is not your community and you're interested in helping, partner with someone, find that lender, find that whatever house inspector that has an inn, and be there. And what I found from something else that I'm doing that has to do with diversity is it's not a one-shot deal. So you need to be at event after event after event. You need to show up and bring the coffee and the donut after service. You need to be part, because people also want to know whether they can trust you or not. And they build trust by, putting in the time and the
Being
dedication
present.
and being present. Yeah, so partner with someone. And I'm not so sure, I'm going to double check. I'm not so sure we don't have at least a Spanish listing presentation and what have you. I know there's a gentleman that has a KW in Punta Cana, and I know that I'm Dominican Republic. He happens to be in Punta Cana, and I know that he brings in training and has all kinds of stuff. So
yeah, please, that would be great. The last I checked, which was,
it may not be up on command, but
yeah, that's the thing.
I think these things are forming. And oh, my very last thing, and then actually I do have to leave for another appointment, but my very last thing is we are also the change. Carlos said we're the table, but we're also the change. I mean, if you look around at just little boxes on here, just the fact that we don't all look exactly the same is going to be another way that this all changes.
Totally.
Yeah.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you. Eric?
Yes, thanks, Marrisa. I actually love this workshop, just to say. So thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
I heard a couple of things like, let's go into the community, let's go into the Hispanics, let's go into the Asians, and maybe I'm too Belgian for this, but like for me, everybody's equal. I used to run a team in Belgium who had 36 nationalities, so diversity is not even on my vocabulary. It's everybody's equal. I would want to make a call out to Steve, and maybe via Steve to Rick, because you mentioned a very great point, so did Marcel. Is it so difficult to have all the basic languages, English, French, Spanish, maybe Portuguese, I don't want to go there, in command, so that we can send our purchase agreement, whatever, your representation agreements, etc., in the different languages to the different communities, so that they feel way more comfortable from day one. That's what Carlos also said. We are the table. Well, let's make sure, we reach out to whoever within their language. I don't speak Spanish, but I speak Dutch, English, French, German. I can do that. I can help putting those documents together in those languages. I suppose somebody else in our group can help putting it together in Spanish. However, I want to point out I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to be tricked into mistakes. Yeah. But it was just a little call out to Steve. Maybe I don't know if he's still on this call.
No, I totally agree with you, Eric. I think that it's very easy for us. It should not be this difficult to foundationally have certain documents available in other languages, whether they're legal documents or not, right? My understanding is that the contracts have to be in English, but why not offer a Spanish translation, right? At least for them to read and understand and to, oh, okay, yeah, I got it. A French for Marcel, right? So she doesn't have to sit there for 2 hours translating a friggin' listing agreement.
As Donna once said, you read a book one page at a time. This is one step at a time. And I think it's a very small step for us to do.
Totally.
Yeah, I'll speak up, Eric. I am here, and thanks for mentioning that. We have talked about this. It's on the list of things that we're looking at. Again, like you said, Eric, you're not an attorney. So what is required with the translation of all our documents is attorney review. So it just kind of gets to be a bigger project, but know that we're looking at it for sure. Yeah. And I think a Hispanic version, I think maybe Donna mentioned that something may be available. I think that is something that is being offered from KW. We just have to see what that means. So we're looking into that. So know that we're doing
It's on
it.
my notes. It's on my notes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dee.
I've had about 5 ahas. So thank you, Marissa. And thank you for everybody who spoke so far. One of the things that came to mind is I had someone in one of my networking groups who runs a language school here in Ridgefield, is to reach out to some of the language schools and maybe, as we struggle with scripts, is maybe see what it would be to have a translator available at buyer consultations for some of the languages that we interact with. It's just coming up with solutions, Marissa. That's what came up for me. How can we come together and work together with partners, another partner situation, because, the words we choose, we know, are important with how we relate to the people we're in front of. So those are important, and as we work with someone that we translate, because we might choose the wrong word, aside from the documents, and of course the documents as well. So, and again, as Steve just said, we have to have the right legal language, but as we talk with someone else, we need someone to translate our words properly so that we engage and form the right relationship. So I wanted to throw out the idea of language schools, and maybe working with some language schools and seeing if we can get some partnerships going, because that's a great barrier we could get through. Okay.
I think so. And something that I wrote in my notes is just creating a roster of partners to help us with this. So I remember once upon a time, we had a roster that even just listed the people within the office who spoke other languages. Why don't we have a roster of partners in business who we can refer to? Oh gosh, I stumbled upon somebody from Senegal here. Okay, who can help me? Right? What are my resources to make sure that we're all like supporting each other?
Put that on the current roster. You could put that on the current roster of like another column who speaks.
Totally. A whole nother section there. Go ahead, Joanna, and we'll go on to the next question.
Sure. With all this conversation, I'm sure somebody must have thought of this. We have offices all over the world. So certainly those offices have contracts and their paperwork in their native languages, I would think. So can we not pull from that pool of other KW offices around the world?
That's a good idea. I think being able to find somebody who speaks different languages is one thing, right?
Right.
Being able to find people in our market, in our area to connect with is something else, right?
Yeah, but the documents.
Yeah, we can find the documents, but certainly.
Yeah, and then of course having the backup by all means. Thank you for this, by the way.
Oh, thank you guys. You guys are killing it. You guys are killing it.
I just mentioned in the chat, it's what Joanne says is a good idea, but we need to take into account that every state has different legislation.
Every county has different things. Yeah, that's the tricky thing. It's hard to borrow from like other places when it's not exactly how we've been functioning here. Hester, and let's move forward. Or Nikki.
This was just piggybacking off Joanne. We have market centers in other countries, right?
Yes.
So countries that do they have their forms in their language that we can use here in the United States or no?
Well, their forms are going to be for their country, right? Like even just county to county, we have different documents that we use in Connecticut. So that's why it's hard to just, take the document from somewhere else. And that's what, that's what Carlos was saying, right? We are the table. We have to be the heroes. It's nice to think, oh, maybe we can borrow this, borrow that. And I'm sure in some places that can be implemented, but really we have to step up to what we're doing here and hold ourselves accountable to create the change, to be able to include more people, to make this accessible to more people. Margaret.
Okay, so I was thinking, kind of piggybacking on that, definitely we want to stay US based, but there are certainly areas of the country that are, have a very strong Spanish population. I'm thinking maybe New Orleans for like Creole and French and things like that. So even if we got that as a basis, and then maybe we just go to like a local bar association and see if somebody can help us pre bono, right? Social equity is such a global conversation, and certainly it's on the national forefront. If we could partner with some of these local lenders and attorneys, maybe they can be, we can all work on this together.
Yeah, for sure. This doesn't have to be a KW problem, right? Why not take this to our local boards and associations?
And they could potentially get some business, right? If we find some attorney who speaks Creole or French, why not?
Right? They're gonna be like, great, I just found my French speaking agent.
Yeah.
Finally, I've been waiting. All right, let's go forward. This is a little bit interesting question. Okay, this has to more to do about us and how we interact with our clients. All right, and it's a little wordy, so bear with me. Prompt 2, identities are intersectional, right? Meaning a person can be Black and well-educated and have a physical disability. They can be first-generation immigrant from non-English speaking country and be wealthy and still come from a low-income background and be a wildly successful real estate agent. How do you plan to accommodate your clients with diverse and intersectional backgrounds? So let's digest it a little bit. Client comes to you, right? From Hispanic community. They're not just Hispanic, right? We're not just our ethnicity. Person who might be bound to a wheelchair, they're not just a disabled person, correct? They're a whole human with multiple facets to their lives, different ways that they express themselves, different ways that they identify, right? What does our business look like, and how do we interact with people that we're acknowledging and recognizing the diversity within each person that we work with? A simple example that Julie Lachey was talking about is, do we have a system and a standards of practice in the way that we operate so that every time we encounter somebody, everybody gets the same experience, right? You can't discriminate against somebody when everybody has to answer the same questionnaire, right? When they come to you as a buyer client. Something that I said to some clients of mine last year, when there was a lot of upset and protests, they were a Black family and we were buying in Stratford. And I'm this cute little thing, walking around showing houses, opening doors. And we were standing in there and I said to them, you know what, guys, I just need to say something to you real quick, because I'm really happy to be working with you. I think you've enjoyed working with me, and I really appreciate your trust. But I just want to say, with everything going on right now, it's very clear that you don't know what you don't know. So I hope that we can have a relationship where if at some point in this transaction I've done something untowards, or I've neglected to address a concern of yours that I'm not even aware, because I'm not a member of your community, I don't have the same experiences and background as you, I would hope that I invite you to say something, because I would love to change what I'm doing to be able to better serve you. Right? I try to create that conversation with people delicately. Because I don't know what I don't know. There's a lot of clients that I work with, and all of a sudden they come to with a concern to me that I wasn't paying attention to. I had Indian clients who were worried about, the direction that the bathroom was facing on the compass because it meant something. Didn't get to learn a lot more about that, but okay, that's a new concern. Thank you so much for enlightening me on that, so we can use that moving forward. So what are some things that you guys are doing in your business to account for the diversity of the clients that you're working with? Or maybe something that you could do to account for the diversity of the clients you're working with. It's a tricky question, I know. You can think about it, but I need at least two of you to share.
I'll jump in, Marissa, although it's not really an answer, just because I don't want you out there all by yourself. So to your point, I don't know what I don't know. And I've worked with a lot of multicultural clients and love them and they're fabulous. From my perspective, about 10 years ago, and I don't know if Kim Trump was on this call, but she did it with me. We went through this program called PLTI, which was Parent Leadership Training Institute. Some of you guys may know it. And it was all about bringing people from diverse backgrounds and finding common ground. And there was like 30 people and I was one of 3 Caucasians, which was a very different experience for me, right? Because we're used to, you know, being in the majority. But the cool thing was we talked about race, religion, sexuality, and we just focused on our commonality, right? So when I have people, regardless of their religion or race, I just focus on, we're all parents. We all want a safe place for our kids to live, right? We all want like a nice fenced yard. We want to make sure we're safe, we feel comfortable. You know, you want your bedrooms to be close to the baby's room, whatever it is. So I've been trying to focus like, what are these common themes? And it doesn't matter the color of your skin, everybody has the same concerns. But to your point, there might be something I'm missing that I don't even know. And I don't know how I find it.
Yeah, it takes a level of humility to say that, right? And that's that's this conversation right now. I think without saying it, we all came here and thought, gosh, I don't know what I don't know. I better join the social equity workshop to learn something, right? Go ahead, Effie.
Oh, hi. I don't have anything so profound to share, but in sort of the spirit of meeting people where they are and trying to sort of anticipate all of their needs, one of the questions that I do ask in buyer's consultations is, you know, if they're Spanish speaking or if they're elderly parents, you know, if it's a young first time home buyers that their parents want to tag along to an inspection, but their English isn't so great, I'll say, hey, is it important for you to find an inspector, book an inspector that's bilingual who speaks both English and Spanish that can, you know, where your parents can feel comfortable asking questions. And they're always super appreciative of that. Like, wow, thanks so much. I didn't even think about that. And inspectors that I work with that are bilingual are grateful. I'll just shoot them a text, heads up, you know, you might be fielding questions in English and Spanish, and everyone is just very appreciative of that.
Yeah,
and sort of ask those questions in the buyer's consult. Like I've actually dealt with you know, a compass and facing east, and there are different things that are important to different buyers. But when you cover it in the consultations, like, is there anything really important that we didn't cover that's, you know, very like unique to you, your family, your culture? Like, bring it on, let me know. And then it just, it helps.
That's a really good question, right? I often ask in my consults, you know, is there anything that we didn't discuss that we should discuss? Which is open-ended. I like the specifics of what you said. Is there anything unique to you, right, that we should discuss that involves your needs?
Although with the caveat that when you do ask that question, I've had a client tell me that, you know, they hate wind chimes. They can't show up to a house with wind chimes and I can't take them there. So be careful. It opens a can of worms when you do ask an open-ended question like that.
You gotta like show up early to every showing and take down the wind chimes to really get there. Do you have, so what I've found and what I'm hearing a lot is of most things, language is probably the biggest barrier for a lot of people. Language is a huge barrier. Do you have a lot of Spanish speaking inspectors that you work with, Effie? Or do you have a few?
We do have a few that we've used. Yep.
Cool. So you don't have to name them now, but I'll certainly reach out when I start building this little resource database, because that would be a huge help. That'd be a huge help.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you. Is there anything else? Anybody have another share on that one? Something that we're doing in our business to acknowledge and respect the diversity of our clients? Go ahead, Shirley.
So this is just something new that's happened in my life. I have a background in social work, and I worked in a crisis center with abused women. And so I've had a few years of working with some diverse communities, and I've had a new family member change the pronoun that they use. And it's quite jarring for me, having called this person by a pronoun that I wasn't used to. And I don't know if other people have been coming across that as they're working with clients. And I'd never really experienced it before. And I have friends who've said, it's been around for 12 years. Where have you been? Years and years and years. And it used to be Old English even to say, for example, they instead of he or she. And it started showing up on Zoom calls, and it was very jarring for me. And I know, like working with my parents before they died and whatnot, they would use words that were really no one on this panel would be comfortable with because of their age. It was hard for them to change, no matter how much I corrected them. So I just wanted to throw it out there if people have been having to work with pronouns that are new and different.
Thank you for sharing that, Sherry Lee. That's I think that's a perfect example of us being confronted with something that makes us uncomfortable, right? But being open to the experience, right? Being open to the change, as difficult as it may be for us.
And friends who don't want to accept it either.
Yeah.
So it's definitely challenging.
Yeah, even for myself, I've had a similar experience, and as much as I love my friend, right, I absolutely adore my friend. I do anything that they ask me to. When they change their pronouns, it's a little, it's like breaking that ingrainment, right? That habit. But I think people see your intentions often when you come through, and to be less afraid of offending people and just come with humility, right? Everybody's happy to work with you if you come with humility.
Hey, Marissa.
Yes, Jen.
I think that this just really points out the importance of having formal consultations with your clients.
Yeah.
Because if you have formal consultations with your clients, you are able to ask these sorts of questions. Is there anything that, any expectation that you have in how this negotiation is going to go? Because culturally they might have, specific expectations of how they're supposed to negotiate. Or is there anything in particular that I should know about how you'd like for me to refer to you, or anything at all? And I think, then you have to just keep paying attention throughout the whole entire process. But at least if you have that formal consultation, you have the ability to really make some headway in how you can be the most effective and the most equitable person that you can be with whoever it is that you're working with.
Yeah, that's an awesome point. Thank you, Jen. Again, the consultation is important. Who knew? All right, guys, I really want to be respectful of your time. I appreciate so much everybody who's participated. I could not have done this without you. So I just want to ask a few finishing questions here. Rapid fire. Everybody's ready? Everybody's awake? Everybody's going to jump in and give me one little nugget, please. All right. When we leave this room here today, what is one thing that you are going to take forward and change or implement in your business? Go ahead, Marcel.
So Carlos said it, we are the table. So that make me want to go back to my community and help them. If I don't do that, nobody's going to do it for them.
Man,
so I'm doing that.
That's awesome. I'm really excited to hear that, Marcel. We really are the table. We have to bring it to them. People aren't going to come to us. We already know that, right? We have to go to them. If you're in a community that you desire to serve, or you see a community that needs to be served, just jump in. One more person, at least. What's one thing that you're going to do when you leave this room, you're going to implement or change in your business to better serve your community or underserved communities.
Start collecting names and people who are good at all the languages and the know-how, and just start collecting a big network of people to call on.
Fabulous. And you know, Shirley, if you do that consistently enough, you're going to become known as that person. Somebody's going to say, man, I really need somebody who speaks Xhosa. And there, you know who we should go talk to? We should go talk to Shirley. I bet you she has the answer. She's been doing that really consistently at a high level. So I think she's the one to help us out. Let's get one more for the road. Go ahead, Debbie.
Yeah, I'll say, as Jen said, better consultation, because I too, being from the islands and being part of Indian background, it's always essential addressing people by their names and exactly, and having correctly the names, you know, and there's a lot of cultural things people in the islands want in a specific way. You have to, you know, so I think introducing to them and always keep learning about different things and anything, and addressing any situation that comes up there and then, you know, and working through everything just to make everybody work together to get to the closing, because it's so important that, you know, people would just work with you after that and recommend you and refer you too, but you got to get it right from the get-go.
You got to have that foundation, and that foundation is everything. You can build your trust in your relationship after that, because what do people do? They work with people they like and they trust.
Yeah,
I think we all know that.
That's
awesome.
Right.
Is there any other shares before I wrap it up? Margaret, you still got your hand up from before? You got something new? No, just happy to raise your hand, right?
No, it was up from before, but I will just say that I did make a page of notes, and I really liked your, it was either you, Marrisa, or somebody else, the whole, you know, anything specific to you, like incorporating that in the buyer consult. I just really liked that. So I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, I think we all took away something that we can for sure one up our buyer consult. And I think the other biggest takeaway is that we are the table, right? We got to go to them. It's up to us. And if we're sitting around here, we're going, shucks, man, I can't believe there are not Black homeowners in this country. How come they're renting? Why don't you just do as Michael Jackson says and take a look at the man in the mirror and ask yourself, what am I doing? What am I not doing to uplift these communities, right? And at the risk of sounding brash, I think it's a huge business opportunity that we're literally sleeping on. Right.
And can I add one other thing too? And I also feel like, if I do like the idea of the community outreach, but I really think we should try to be incorporating key members who are as representative as possible to those populations. We don't want to be like a bunch of white people coming in as the
You don't want to be the
saviors.
white savior, for
Right.
sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we can easily partner with people. I think that it's these communities are so profoundly underserved that it would be too much business for one person. I sincerely think, unless this person has some sort of like built out system and pipeline and knows what to do with every single lead, right? Why not partner with somebody in a community, you know, who's a friend of yours? I think that's a great idea. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We went a little bit over, but I really appreciate the conversation. Go ahead, Shirley.
All these communities also, what I've been coming across are people who, the technology language. I used to think it was just people who are older, but it's all the communities having technology phobias, and how do you address that language wise and, you know, without putting everybody down.
Totally. Got to get on their level, right? Get on their level. Fabulous. Well, guys, keep an eye out. I think after walking out of here, we're going to start building that. What's that thing called? A roster of different partners that can help us and help these, help the communities that we desire to serve, so that our marketing center can be nothing but a resource for you to go out there and make more money and better serve our community. Sound awesome? Go ahead, give me a applause. Fabulous, guys. Thank you so much for coming. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me directly. And I look forward to seeing you out there. Bye.